Chairwoman Luna, Ranking Member Garcia, and members of the task force, thank you for the opportunity to testify today about the privacy, transparency, and accountability issues raised by the recent release of documents from the President Kennedy assassination records collection. My name is John Davisson, and I am the Director of Litigation and Senior Counsel at the Electronic Privacy Information Center, or EPIC. EPIC is an independent nonprofit research organization established in 1994 to protect privacy, freedom of expression, and democratic values in the information age. As this task force knows well, the assassination of President Kennedy was an event of surpassing historical and political significance, one that has engendered more than 60 years of investigation, analysis, and debate. Today's hearing highlights the critical role that open government laws, and in particular the JFK Records Act, have played in informing that discourse. As the Supreme Court has written, open government laws are one of the key mechanisms for holding the governors accountable to the governed. With that in mind, Congress has rightly established a robust array of public disclosure requirements for federal entities, including the Freedom of Information Act, the Federal Advisory Committee Act, and the JFK Records Act. Having spent decades to secure the transparency of government records, EPIC firmly supports the objectives of the JFK Records Act and the fulfillment of its disclosure mandate. But given that many federal records contain sensitive personal information, Congress has also made it clear that government transparency must be balanced with the protection of privacy. Disclosing personal information is inherently invasive and can expose individuals to a broad spectrum of secondary harms, including identity theft, fraud, reputational harm, psychological harm, stalking, harassment, doxing, and vigilantism. Accordingly, the FOIA, the FACA, and the JFK Records Act all establish that the disclosure of records is not required to the extent that such dissemination would constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Together with the Privacy Act, these provisions ensure in principle that the federal government only disseminates personal information to the extent that the public interest in disclosure outweighs the privacy interest of the individual to whom the information pertains. To fulfill this dual mandate of transparency and privacy protection, federal agencies consistently conduct a detailed review of documents prior to release, redacting personal information or sometimes withholding records in full where disclosure would cause unwarranted privacy harm. For example, when processing FOIA requests, the National Archives is ordinarily careful to withhold records about a living individual that, if released, would cause a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. In the past, NARA has also conducted extensive reviews of documents subject to the JFK Records Act to identify and request the withholding of any Social Security numbers or financial information of living persons. By all appearances, these procedures and safeguards were completely bypassed in last month's hurried release of 60,000 pages from the JFK Records collection, which led to the public disclosure of Social Security numbers and other private information of more than 400 former congressional staffers and other former officials, some of them still living. This shocking violation of privacy has compounded a national trauma and distracted from Congress's stated goal of informing the public through the JFK Records Act. Security experts, as well as those directly harmed by the breach, have deemed it outrageous, sloppy, unprofessional, astonishing, foolish, incompetent, egregious, almost criminal, and a breach of a first-grade elementary level rule of security. NARA has reportedly begun to reach out to individuals affected by the breach, and the White House has promised free credit monitoring services and new Social Security numbers to those affected. But these steps are too little, too late. The bell can't be unrung. There are several lessons to draw from this episode. First, Congress has mandated that agencies take steps to prevent unwarranted invasions of privacy resulting from records disclosures for good reason. This incident illustrates why those procedures must be followed, even when logistically or politically inconvenient. Congress should explore updates to the FOIA, the Privacy Act, and other federal record statutes to ensure that such procedures are both readily enforceable and followed without exception. Second, while prompt disclosure of public records is essential, fire drills that make it impossible to ensure the redaction of sensitive personal information are a threat to privacy and to the public. Although it is difficult to see how any agency could have completed an ongoing review of 60,000 pages within the 24 hours abruptly allotted, this incident serves as a reminder of the need to adequately fund public records offices throughout the federal government to ensure that they can carry out their weighty and growing responsibilities in a timely fashion. Third, this breach, while deeply serious, is a drop in the bucket compared to the wrongful disclosure of personal information now occurring within and between federal agencies, Failing to rein in the ongoing government-wide misuse of systems of records by largely unaccountable actors risks far more dangerous consequences. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.